Extra, extra, read all about it. XGI becomes blonde beauty.
In the early 1950s, this story was seen by tons of Americans, making Christine Jorgensen a household name. As she returned to the United States after receiving a sex change in Europe, she became known as an instant celebrity, constantly meeting with the press, sharing her story for free. She was known for her directness and her polished wit, and used her platform to advocate for transgender people. I'm Alexis Harrington, and welcome to Everyone's Gay, a look into queer history. Christine Jorgensen was born on May 30th, 1926, in the Bronx. At an early age, she became aware that she identified as a female, rather than a male, which is the gender she was assigned to at birth. She hated boys' clothing, and wondered why all of her clothes were so different from her older sister's pretty dresses. This feeling continued into high school, as Jorgensen said she felt lost between the sexes. Unlike the other boys, she was more envious of the girls than interested in them. Near the end of high school, Jorgensen found a diversion for her personal struggle: photography. Her father was an amateur photographer, and the two set up a darkroom in their home. She also took classes at the New York Institute of Photography. But Jorgensen was forced to put her photography interests aside when she was drafted into the military in 1945. Being small and slightly built, she ended up working as a clerk at Fort Dix, New Jersey. After being discharged in 1946, Jorgensen floundered for a bit before deciding to transition to female. In 1950, Jorgensen traveled to Denmark to begin the transformation from male to female. The treatment, only available in Europe at the time, included hormone therapy and several operations. Her story became public in 1952, while she was still in Copenhagen, making big news in the United States. The New York Daily News ran a front-page story on December 1st, 1952, under the headline, "XGI becomes blonde beauty," announcing incorrectly that Jorgensen had become the first recipient of a sex change. The type of surgery had previously been performed by German doctors in the late 1920s and early 1930s. Now, you might remember in one of our previous episodes, we talked about Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld and his Institute of Sexology. He is actually credited with being the first doctor to administer a sex change to Lily Ebbe, who is known now as the Danish Girl. If you would like to learn more about Magnus Hirschfeld or Berlin during this time, make sure to check out my 6th and 7th episodes, which discuss these topics. Click this little card up here to take you to those episodes. Returning home to the airport in 1953, Jorgensen was met by a sea of reporters at the New York airport.
Christine Jorgensen, who used to answer to George, creates quite a stir as she returns home to New York from Copenhagen. Christine hit the headlines following the series of operations in Denmark that transformed her from a boy into a girl.
Very impressed by everyone coming.
Christine, are you happy to be home?
Yes, of course. What American wouldn't be? I'm very happy to be back. And I don't have any plans at the moment. And I thank you all for coming. But I think it's too much.
Overwhelmed by the attention, Jorgensen had to deal with such headlines as, "Bronx boy is now a girl," or "Dear Mom and Dad, son wrote, have now become your daughter." Becoming more comfortable with her newfound fame, Jorgensen told her story to the American Weekly magazine for a small fee. While she never questioned her choice, many members of the public and the media did not understand and made Jorgensen the subject of ridicule. Even the government was not willing to fully recognize her as female, and in 1959, she announced that she was engaged, but was denied a marriage license because her birth certificate listed her as a male. Although some rejected her, others found her story engaging and fascinating. And Jorgensen's very public transformation from male to female launched a national discussion about gender identity, and her story still stands as an inspiring example to others who experience gender dysphoria.
Miss Jorgensen, or may I call you Christine?
Please do, Mr. Russell.
Are you a woman?
That's a very good question. We seem to assume that every person is either a man or a woman. But we don't take into account this true scientific value that each person is actually both, in varying degrees. Now, this sounds a little evasive, and I don't mean it to be, when in all actuality my only answer to that is that I am more of a woman than I am a man.
I see. You are without a doubt the world's most publicized person. Now, has the fame, the notoriety, the sensationalism, or however you prefer to term it, upset you, or how have you reacted?
Well, my first reaction in December, which was December 1st, 1952, was, of course, great shock and surprise that actually anyone was very much interested in what had happened in my life. Time went on, I realized that this was sort of an important step in the eyes of the world.
I see.
Although my life happenings, or those happenings in Europe, were completed, I knew that there were many others who may or may not be available for such treatment.
I'm looking at a headline in the New York Daily News which says, GI becomes beautiful blonde.
Well, I think it's very complimentary, in a sense, but sometimes it's a little irritating to have XGI come as a tag before anything that anyone does. It seems to connotate in some manner that there was something wrong with being an XGI. But a love interest did have some effect on my desire to go to Europe and clear up this whole situation, simply because I love life much too much to have lived a half-life.
I see.
Jorgensen retired in South Carolina in the early 1970s, and she died of bladder and lung cancer on May 3rd, 1989. To learn more about Christine Jorgensen, check out these titles. Ed Wood's Glen or Glenda, 1953, was publicized as being based on Jorgensen's life. While the movie itself depicts more of Ed Wood's own feelings and thoughts on gender, it's worth the watch. For a more direct way, check out the 1967's Christine Jorgensen, a personal biography by Christine Jorgensen herself, and Her Life Made the Big Screen in the 1970s with The Christine Jorgensen Story. I'm Lisa Harrington, and this has been Everyone's Gay, a look into queer history. If you liked this episode, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and also follow us on social media at Everyone's Gay Queer History. We're on both Facebook and Instagram. We have a big announcement coming up this week, so make sure to follow us on those accounts to hear the latest details. Again, I'm Alexis Harrington. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.